Hey guys, welcome to Friday. Welcome to the basement. Welcome to the live stream. We have a lot to cover today. Big news, things to be happy about in the silver and gold market. Can you accept the fact? I have a question for you. Can you accept the fact in the deepest parts of your soul that silver and gold are in an uptrend? What about a 10-year bull market for silver and gold? I know, and we're going to talk about this. We've been beaten down so much over the last couple of years, over the last decades, that it's almost impossible for you to consider that we could go into like a 10-year bull market. It can happen for silver and gold just like it happened for the S&P 500, the magnificent 7 stocks, the real estate market, the bond market. Heck, the bond market had what, like a 40-year bull market? It can happen for silver and gold, and we're going to talk about why specifically in this video. I've got like 4 or 5 big reasons that we need to consider, and then we'll have a little fun and we'll talk about a potential squeeze for silver, a squeeze for gold. Wouldn't that be interesting? Remember the 70s when there were lines out the door around the block at your local coin shop? I remember. I was like 10 years old. I remember driving by coin shops with dad in the car back in the back seat of the 1976 Pontiac Le Mans Sport Coupe. I'm like, Dad, why are all those people lined up? They're lined up to try to buy themselves some silver. Will we see it again? Let's talk about it. But let's start by an interesting article I want to share with you this morning about what's going on in silver that is just absolutely fascinating. I'm not prepared. Bear with me. I need to share my screen with you. This will take just 1 second. And here we go. Share. All right, guys. Hey, see me over on the left-hand side? I'll leave myself up here for a few seconds. Let's go over to a very interesting site, the Silver Academy. Look, if you're not registered for the Silver Academy and you're a silver investor, I have no financial interest in expressing or encouraging you to do this, but you may benefit from going to the Silver Academy, signing up for their daily email. Jon Little puts out a piece of content every single day, something fascinating about silver. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. You'll get something every day, just like 1 or 2 articles, but real cutting edge information about silver. And this is what he sent to me this morning. Very interesting. Shanghai silver. So this is silver in China, around $27, right? The United States Banks and Silver Institute rigged silver price is $24. Hey, let's run over real quick. Let's just take a quick check, guys. What do you say? And see, bear with me here. And let's go over to Pimbex and see what the silver price. Hey, let's refresh. Okay. So we got gold down about $10 and silver at $24.74. That's more likely the spot price. But let's go back to this article. All right. Why in China, I ask you, is silver $27 an ounce? Defining arbitrage and how BRICS Plus and the apes, those are the Wall Street silver people, are stacking silver and will win. So this is interesting. He pulled up this tweet from a guy named Tim Heck, who said Shanghai gold and silver are much higher than in the United States. Around $27 for silver and $2,200 for gold compared to $24.70 and $21.70. What this does is it sucks the West dry in the long run. The result of this arbitrage could be a very explosive move higher. Now let's go down here. There's silver, right? AG. You can see where my little thing is there, whatever that's called, little magnifying glass. And this is the Shanghai Gold Exchange and Shanghai Futures Exchange. This is as of today, March 22nd. 2707 for silver. AU, which is the periodic. Is that the periodic table? Anyway, the periodic table price for gold, $21.95. And then John goes on to talk about what is arbitrage. So what can happen here, guys? And what makes this so interesting is that you can buy silver for $25 an ounce on the COMEX and sell it on the Shanghai Gold Exchange for $2 more per ounce. And what Jon is setting forth, and he goes through a brilliant explanation of what arbitrage is that people will do that, right? Let's to give you a quick example of how that would work. Let's say you've got one village where they sell little clay pots for $5, and 10 miles away, there's another village that sells little clay pots for $6. Somebody's going to wise up and buy all the clay pots for $5 and go sell them for $6 in village B. That's what's going on right now in the silver market in the world, and the world is getting smaller. So we need to remember, and very interesting point about silver, right? Why is, I dropped Susie. Sorry about that, guys. This is Susie's walkie-talkie where she gives me direction and input during the show. People will make that happen. The world is getting smaller. How can silver be $2 an ounce more in Shanghai? And we've talked about this. Thank you, Sorcerer Stan. Go for the squeeze. We're going to talk about that later because we could have a silver squeeze. And I'm going to point out a couple things that nobody else talks about that could make this next squeeze even more exaggerated, even more fast in its term in terms of how fast things can happen. But remember, one final point. The Shanghai Gold Exchange, where silver is selling for $2 more per ounce right now, is more of a physical market. The world is getting smaller. We've got a lot to be excited about within this silver and gold market, okay? Let's also talk about the big run up, okay? Look, we had a big run, and we can continue to have a big run in the precious metals prices. That's what I believe. That's my idea. That's what I see when I examine everything. But we had a huge, big day on Wednesday. And then yesterday, rug pull, right? Okay, let's talk about that. Is it classic manipulation? Is it classic purposely induced volatility? Manipulation by the COMEX. There's articles that came out. Look, there's different ideas. People have spent their whole career talking about this idea of manipulation in the precious metals markets. But is this part of the big plan to discourage people from being invested in the metals? Some people think that's the case, right? Like they purposely have these crazy price swings. I mean, Wednesday, silver was up 80 cents per ounce. Yesterday, it was down 70, 80 cents per ounce. It's like somebody described it as like having needles poked into our head over and over again. One thing I'll say for sure, and this guy, I think his name's Mike Savage, pointed this out. With the amount of torture that you've been put through as a precious metals investor, the people that are left are very strong hands. They're very committed. Their level of wanting to hold the metal for a long time is very strong, right? They're not going to give up. At this point, anybody who was going to give up gave up. It's even more accentuated when you look at the price of the precious metal mining stocks. So, is this purposeful volatility that's been put into the markets? We don't know. But we do know one thing for sure. Things are getting aligned for a potential major, major move. We're going to talk about the four big reasons why we are in an upswing. Can you accept the fact right now, okay, that we are in a new era, a potential for something like a 10, 5, 10, 15-year bull run in the precious metals? We're going to cover that. But take heart in knowing that if you are in now, you're likely in early. And sometimes being early can feel a little like being wrong. Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about what is supporting this most recent move. The obvious one that everybody's talking about. Reason number one, the Fed and monetary policy. Lower rates coming, right? And lower rates mean that the dollar will go down. And when the dollar goes down, gold and silver go up. This is the old traditional metric by which everybody talks about the silver and gold market, okay? That's probably the biggest headline that you're seeing, all right? Also, at the same time, the world is realizing the financial conundrum that the United States finds itself in. Okay. And people are starting to realize that no matter what the Fed does, it doesn't really matter. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? At the end of the movie, when they discover that the wizard's really just some guy, right? The emperor doesn't wear clothes, however you want to say it. The world is starting to wake up to the fact that the Fed can't control, can't exert as much authority over the world's monetary system as it was able to do just, let's say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There's a lot going on, but let's talk about this new environment that we find ourselves in. We talked about it back in December. I said back in December that that's when the major shift occurred. Okay. Sometimes I'm actually right about things, but now it's not just the United States, it's the world. I just want to pull up a very interesting headline for you. This comes from Reuters. Reuters says the great central bank policy reversal kicks off. Don't worry, we're not going to read the whole article, but there's a couple key things we need to talk about. The world's biggest central banks are on the starting line of reversing a record string of interest rate hikes. Reversing a record string of interest rate hikes. That's the most important sentence. But the way down for borrowing costs will look very different than the way up. There will be no floodgates or fireworks. And what they mean by that is it's not going to be like the Fed's going to come out and say, we're cutting rates by 1%. There will be no big emergency moves, okay? Instead, what we can expect, basement dwellers, is that banks on opposite sides of the Atlantic are likely to move in the smallest of increments with periodic pauses, fearing that ultra-low unemployment could rekindle inflation rates still above their targets. All right, that's the key, right? The world is cutting, hi there, the world is cutting interest rates. Sure, they're saying it's going to be slow motion. Sure, blah, 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 whatever. The world is cutting interest rates. The other big key to remember here, guys, is this will ignite inflation on a worldwide basis. We've got supply side issues that will add to inflation. We have geopolitical issues that will add to inflation. The Fed doesn't really want to fight inflation. People aren't paying as close of attention to the Fed to begin with, but the Fed can't really fight inflation anyway because the whole system would implode. So even though these headlines are telling us, yeah, they're going to lower rates, blah, blah, I got news for you. In my opinion, it doesn't really, really matter. Okay. The next big thing going on right now in the world is de-dollarization. This is the next major reason why we're seeing a big uptrend in the gold price and silver price. The weaponization of the dollar. Look, you didn't do it. I didn't do it. But our leaders in Washington decided to do it. And the world has grown tired of the United States weaponizing the dollar. And what they're saying, I'm just reporting the news, the financial games that are played by the United States as we in the United States had enjoyed this hegemony, whatever the word is, this dominance in the world. Gold, this is critical. Sit back for a second. And when we talk about gold, we're talking about silver. Gold is the new hegemon. Gold is the new dominant force. It always was the dominant force in the world financial system. We know Exter's pyramid, everything is based on silver and gold, but gold is re-emerging, right? The luster. Gold is like a bear that's been sleeping, been hibernating, and it's just starting to wake up. Because think about it, right? A lot of the world doesn't trust the United States dollar from the perspective that it can be weaponized, it can be seized. But on top of that, they don't like the dollar because they can do basic mathematics and they look at the US debt clock. They look at what's going on in the world and they don't like the basic arithmetic that is behind the US dollar. So they don't like it from the weaponization perspective and they're not liking it from the arithmetic perspective. Okay. But there's a big but, and I know you like big buts, and it's a big but. The big but is A lot of these, we hear all about BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. There's 10 BRICS now, but do they really trust each other? They don't trust the dollar, but do they really trust each other? I don't know. Some people say they don't really trust each other. What do they trust? What's been there for thousands of years as a store of value? What has been being purchased at record levels by the world central banks? That's gold. And what does gold do? Gold goes up and up and up lately. And that's a big reason why. And where gold goes, silver will follow, because silver is still a monetary metal. Why do you think the Royal Canadian Mint? Why do you think the UK Mint? Why do you think the Australian Mint? Why do you think the US Mint still makes silver coins? Here, this is an American silver eagle. Thank you, Silvershire. Just dumping fiat. Thank you. That's an American silver eagle from 2023. This, my friends, is monetary metal. Okay? Where gold goes, silver will follow. Okay? So we got reason number one, the Fed monetary policy. Reason number two, de-dollarization. Okay, gold, the new hegemon, silver will follow. Right? They're talking about using the assets that were seized from the Russians to help fund Ukraine. Right? There's a big story going on about this. I mean, what's the world thinking? Right? It's really crazy. Countries are dumping U.S. treasuries. Countries are dumping the U.S. dollar. Now, look, I'm not trying to tell you this is going to happen tomorrow or a month from now or a year from now, but we can definitely see a major trend that these BRICS countries are not buying as many U.S. treasuries, are getting rid of, moving away from their de-dollarizing that will only serve, right, to decrease demand for the dollar, which will make the dollar continue to erode in value. Hey, it wasn't my idea. It wasn't your idea, right? The Federal Reserve has this goal that, we'll only erode the dollar by 2% per year. Well, now the BRICS countries and the rest of the world is saying, you know what, guys, we'll give you a little more help with that. So, look, I don't have a crystal ball, but when we put all the pieces together, it sure feels like an environment that will lead to devaluation, dilution, however you want to say it, lowering in value of the US dollar, because the world has bifurcated. The world has changed right now, right before our very eyes. Look, if you want to get your hands on some silver, some gold, some platinum, all right now, if you think it's a good idea to convert some fiat, some paper money into real metal, I'm not telling you what to do. But if you decide to, do yourself a favor and check out channel sponsor Pimbex, Pimbex, online bullion dealer. I worked with them before they sponsored the channel. I was a very happy customer. I actually found out about them from one of you basement dwellers. You'll find what I found, I think, right? But you need to find it out for yourself. You'll get the best prices, you'll get the best service, and they've got great selection. What I always find is that when I go through Pimbex, I get more metal for my money. The exact same metal, the exact same Britannias, the exact same American Silver Eagles. Doesn't matter that I can get at any of the other big online bullion dealers, but I get them at a better price, which means I get more metal for my money. Do yourself a favor. Do what I did. Check out Pimbex. Thank you, Pimbex, for sponsoring the basement and making this live stream and the channel possible. Next, right? We need to talk about central banks are buying. We talked about the Fed. Everybody's lowering rates throughout the world. We talked about de-dollarization. We also need to talk about what, in terms of is supporting these higher silver and gold prices. Have you heard? The central banks are buying at a record pace. Not so much individual investors. It's really not. Now, like in China, we know people are gold crazy, silver crazy. In India, people are gold, silver crazy. A lot of other places in the world. But really what's been pushing up gold price and a big source of demand are world central banks. Did you know that China now has 3 times the amount of gold. That's what I read last night. Right now, it's hard to estimate what China actually has. They're somewhat secretive about it. But what I read last night was they have 3 times the amount of gold as the United States. Okay, what does that tell us? Who are the emerging powers in the world? The other thing we cannot deny, guys, and this is scary. Okay, thank you, Metal Seer. All right, and thank you, Silvershire. Thank you guys for the super chats. Super appreciated. They go a long way to help support the channel. Thank you. Please give this a thumbs up. I'll ring the bell when we get to 100 thumbs up, okay? And don't forget, you can always subscribe. I'll put out a piece of content every day, something interesting, right? Something that you can be a part of as a basement dweller here, something about silver and gold. Probably one of the biggest reasons that is supporting the silver and gold price right now. We talked about the world bifurcating, the world splitting. We know under the best of circumstances, right? The BRICS are growing, right? Immensely in power. I mean, it's crazy what's going on in the world. But what about geopolitics? What about war? We have a war going on in Europe, in Ukraine, right? We kind of forget about that right now, right? Again, the West against Russia. Like I said, there's this proposal to use some of the interest earned on the assets that were seized from Russia to help support the Ukraine. I mean, it's crazy. This is going on right now. We know, right? We hear threats of nuclear war. It's a crazy environment. But at the same time, we have the situation in the Middle East, in Israel. We have war in the Middle East. We have war in Europe, war in the Middle East. Think about that for a second. This is a crazy world, right? And what I'm telling you, gold and silver, that's one of their primary, absolute thousands of years, what they've been. Okay. Thank you, Susie. Over. Everybody say hi to Susie. There she is. All right. I have to break in and ring the bell 10 times. Where'd it go? Here it is. We got 100 thumbs up. It's Friday. We did a couple bonus rings. Thank you guys for the thumbs up. It helps get the word out to more people. Okay. Now, back to this. We have a war in Europe. We have a war in the Middle East. That's going on right now. Okay. We are in a state of uncertainty, of fear. I mean, that's the reality. That's going on in the world right now. But it gets even worse. The Houthis, right? They're still up to their what would you call it? I guess war actions in the Red Sea, right? Going after Western ships. And that's a major, major thoroughfare. Don't forget, we have the situation with Taiwan in China. Recent reports that the U.S. has put, I think, Green Berets on some island off the coast of Taiwan. This is the world is getting to be a scary place. And then what nobody's talking about, but I've become a little fascinated with lately, is North Korea. It's crazy. North Korea is telling their people to prepare for war again, right? This prospect of North Korea, okay? But we're hearing, and you have to parse through all this data, but there's this prospect with North Korea and South Korea. I was thinking last night, I'm like, this feels like, I don't want to use the term because it's darn scary, but it feels like World War III. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but that's what gold and silver do, right? Protect you during times of uncertainty, right? So Ukraine, Europe, Middle East, the Red Sea, Taiwan, China, North Korea. There's probably more. Isn't there something going on in Haiti as well? We need to remember, right, that gold and silver are the safe harbor during times of uncertainty. Are paper money going to save you? Think about it, right? You can pull up, Lynette Zhang has a pile of different currencies this big. She has a gun that shoots dollar. Is paper money, right? Think of all those paper monies that have been around for the centuries, thousands of years, right? Did they protect people? No. Here, I'll tell you what protected people. Here, this. That came from my friend Silvershire, who graciously gave a super chat this morning. That's an ounce of silver. That's protected, people. What about this? This is $1.40 in constitutional silver. That's equal to 1 ounce. Okay. Right. This is pre 1964, 1965. Constitutional. That's what made America great. I'm going to go down that path quickly with you. That's what made the United States what it is today, right? That laid the foundation when we used silver and gold in our money. So those are 4 reasons, just 4 reasons why we have this big upswing in the silver price and gold price. Let's go check out the price right now. What do you say, guys? I'm going to put you on full screen and let's go to Pimbex and see what the prices are right now. Well, you know what? Silver's up a penny, gold is down $11 per ounce. We're still at $2,169, $2,170 for the gold price. All right, it's strong. Can you believe? Wow! Thank you again, Metal Seer. Many experts consider 2% inflation a sweet spot. Yeah, we're just going to steal 2% of your money per year, right? And we know the real numbers are much, 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 much higher. It's absolutely crazy, but we just accept it because that's the way it's always been. You know, I was driving on vacation with my mom and dad the other day, and I was talking about inflation, and I'm like, why? I was like, why do we just accept the fact that prices go up, that the value of our paper money goes down, that every year? And they kind of looked at me. I'm like, I mean, could you imagine an environment where our money was based on silver and gold and prices because of increases in productivity, because of technology, right? Prices should be going down, guys. We should be living an easier life now than people lived 50 or 60 years ago, but we're not. Are you? I'll ask you that question. The answer is probably no, right? It's harder to get by. Doesn't that not make sense? That doesn't make sense, right? Is it because part of your value? I mean, if you did work, let me ask you this question. If you were a house painter and you painted my house 10 years ago for me, and I paid you $1,000 in cash, okay, and you had 10 $100 bills 10 years ago, what could you have bought with those 10 $100 bills 1 year ago? And if you just kept them stacked up in your office through today, 10 years later, what can you buy? You can buy a heck of a lot less, maybe 30 or 40% less, but we just accept that that's the case. Maybe you and I don't accept it. Maybe we're the type of people who want to get our hands on some real metal. Hey, I want to say thank you to channel sponsor First Mining Gold, Canadian gold development company with 2 multi-million ounce deposits in Canada and several other projects in Canada as well. As a company founded by Keith Neumeyer. You can learn about them at firstmininggold.com. If you have any questions, want to learn about the investment opportunity there, you can reach out to Paul Morris. He's their Director of Investor Relations. I got a link to his email address in the description below. And our friends, Fortuna Silver, who's actually become more of a gold mining company. I talked with Jorge Ganoza, the CEO there, just a week ago. The company is doing very well. One thing super interesting that he mentioned to me when I was talking to him was that in the fourth quarter of 2023, the average sales price for the gold, the average throughout the month of October, November, and December was $1,990 per ounce. Where are we sitting today? We just looked on Pimbex's site. We're at what, $2,170? Almost $200 today. Now, that's not going to be the average for the whole first quarter, but guys, we've got a much higher gold price, and we can be happy about that, right? We can be happy about that. So if you want to learn more about Fortuna Silver, you can check them out at fortunasilver.com. Thank you to First Mining Gold. Thank you to Fortuna Silver. And thank you to Pimbex for sponsoring Ron's Basement. Why in the world? Here's a question for you to ponder. Why in the world are the demand for silver and gold through the roof? We know in China, okay? We know 800,000 people lined up to buy gold the Monday after the Lunar New Year celebration at one mall. Okay, 800,000 people. The pictures are incredible. Right? We know all over the world the demand, the central bank demand is crazy. And even a lot of the higher end investors are buying large amounts of silver and gold. Right? We heard about Stanley Druckenmiller buying gold mining stocks. I think it was Paul Elliott buying gold. I mean, people are moving big money everywhere in the world except the retail investors. Right? The demand for silver and gold has yet to pick up in the United States, really specifically with retail investors. What is that telling us? That's like the last bastion. When that changes, guys, it's going to be crazy. We can see it in the ETF outflows. People are perplexed, right? Like gold is knocking on guys, we have 2170 gold. I mean, we are in all-time new high territory. There aren't a lot of people waiting, right, to sell gold at $2,300. Nobody bought gold for 2,300 US dollars. It's going to want to sell it at some point. It's kind of clear sailing from here. Now, look, I don't have a crystal ball. Don't make any financial decisions based on anything that I tell you today. But it sure feels like there's clear sailing for gold. Now, silver's a little different, right? Because you remember, silver hit $50 in 1980. And if you adjust that for inflation in today's dollars, that'd be like silver hitting like $160 per ounce, which if I say that, I'll get eggs thrown at me. I'm a silver pumper. Yes, I'm a silver pumper because I believe in silver. But, right, nonetheless, silver, I think, right, and you may not agree with this, but I think for all intensive purposes, $30 silver is kind of the all-time high. I just don't think there's a lot of people out there sitting on silver thinking that they bought at $32, $35, $38 per ounce. I think the 30s, I think once we get above $30 per ounce in silver, it's free sailing. There isn't a lot of what's called overhead resistance at those levels, okay? It's going to be an interesting ride, all right? We're going to be together for it all, okay? We're going to get there, I believe, right? I believe we're going to get there. Just to touch on one more thing, have you remember all this doom and gloom? And I was partly to blame as well. That the bank term funding program, it ended 11 days ago on March 11th. That was the bailout that the Fed did a year ago when we had the banking crisis, that banking crisis that was like more banks failed or more dollar amounts than the entire financial crisis. Nothing is really, it's kind of been a little bit so far of a nothing burger, right? Now that the bank term funding program's gone, it's going to be interesting as we head into, right, these coming months, what happens with that. The other thing we need to keep an eye on is the reverse repo program, which is continuing to be drained. My thoughts on that were that it was basically a stealth QE program. I don't know how you feel about that one, but we need to keep close eyes on that. The other thing, guys, let's not forget, this is an election year. And an election year, you're going to hear nothing but policies that are going to be easy money oriented, right? Everything's great. I mean, maybe they'll come out with a program where they already tried to pay off everybody's student loans. What's next? They're going to pay off everybody's credit cards, right? Like you don't have to have any responsibility in this country anymore. I didn't necessarily agree with the idea of paying off people's student loans, and I certainly wouldn't agree with the idea of paying off everybody's credit cards, but I don't think anything's out of the question. And again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just throwing it out there that it's an election year, and these guys will do anything to or propose anything to influence voters. Let's be real, okay? On top of that, this could prove to be a very contentious election, which could generate a lot of uncertainty. And don't forget, on top of the fact that the world is at a massive state of conflict right now, that uncertainty is good for silver and gold. If we have more political dissent and contention like we did 3 or 4 years ago, I don't want anything bad to happen, but we know that silver and gold offer an awesome safe harbor during times of uncertainty. I mean, and in the best of circumstances, right? The bottom line supporting silver, gold, we got the dollar that is just being battered based on just pure mathematics. Mathematics show no forgiveness on the altar of truth. Let's have some fun, guys. It's Friday. You know, we got to do our daily check of the U.S. debt clock. Hold on here. Here's an article from CNBC. This, to let us see this a couple days ago, March 20th, but gold prices have been hitting record highs. Here's why the rally is far from over. Did CNBC said that? Okay. They're basically saying it's because of interest rate cuts. I'll spare you. Look at all that gold. Is that what your basement looks like? Oh, if it is, I want to come over and visit. It says the rally in gold continues with prices hitting all-time high on Thursday until they smashed it down. Prices could rise to $2,300 per ounce in the second half of 2024, especially against the backdrop of expectations that the United States Federal Reserve could cut rates in the second half of 2024. That was according to Akash Doshi. That's from Citibank, right? North American head of commodities research. So we've got Citibank, we have CNBC talking about new highs in gold. That'll be off to the races time for our friend silver. Let's just go check that debt clock. Okay. Just got to make sure it's not going down. US now. Oh boy, we're almost to 34 trillion 600 billion. Boy, it seems like just yesterday we got to 34 trillion 500 billion. Okay. Wonder what the secret window has. Let's check it out. Let's see here, guys. This brings us to Twitter. Oh, this is new. Here, the Fed and the money factory. There's Chairman Powell, and there's the U.S. Constitution pulling the plug. Very interesting. Debt to wealth. Interesting. So you got Jerome, with the printer, and I guess this is a play on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And we've got, I don't know what EXO stands for, but whoever, the Constitution down here pulling the plug. Very interesting. Let's go back here. Okay, so this is crazy. U.S. unfunded liabilities, that's still going up. Let's look at the money supply. It is continuing to shrink. And again, right, there's a lot of research on this, but basically, when this goes down, I think the last time that happened was during the Great Depression. That is not a good thing at all. And that is why we have the dollar to silver ratio. This was a big deal. Remember this like 9 months ago? Everybody was all excited because the dollar to gold ratio and the dollar to silver ratio, that measures the change in M2 money supply divided by the amount of silver that's produced. But since this is going down, it's a negative number. It makes it a zero. All right, let's get back here. All right, guys, it's going to be an interesting ride. I hope you have a great weekend. I really appreciate you joining me today. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to Susie. If you don't mind, you know what? I can do it. Let's type 888 for those that moderate. Let me go to the comments here real quick and make sure there's nothing we need to address. Stack Pizza. Hey, Jake from Jake's Custom Parts. Thank you for moderating. Annie, thank you for moderating. The cat, mainstream. Here, Robert Kemp says, let's see here. Oh, I can pull that up. Interesting. Okay. I'm learning new things here. Silver's value is purposely been covered up to stop the masses to obtain any freedom and of will and any interest in buying. If the masses ain't got it, then they can be controlled more easily. Yeah, that's a theory. Let me see how do I get rid of that? Robert, thank you for that comment. That's a theory, right? That the silver price and the gold price, and that's been a big subject here the last few days. Volatility, right? They don't want all right, let's get this is a little controversial, but there's some people and I have to be honest, I somewhat subscribe to this notion as well that the silver and gold industry are unregulated because the powers that be don't want people to really invest in it. So if there's not a lot of regulation and a lot of volatility in the price of silver and gold, it will discourage the everyday average person from investing in it. Obviously, I think we can say the mainstream financial industry doesn't do anything to encourage people to invest into silver and gold. I mean, I don't think that most financial advisors, and I don't know, but I can say this because I've heard it said many, many times. They aren't necessarily encouraged to put people into silver and gold. So there is something to that, right? Uh, uh, the average person, most average Americans don't know much about silver and gold. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the basement. Remember, right? It's YouTube. This is not possible without your help, your support, your contribution, your participation. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you again soon.